Hello. Um, First, I want to say sorry if what is it? My face, the webcam was in front of some things I was discussing. I made it a bit smaller right now. I just noticed. But all right. So leads. Now leads. You could talk for hours, days about melodies and making a track sound great. And honestly, this is a gift, a talent, but it's also a lot of hard work. Some people can really do this just almost seems effortlessly, but there is, a theory to the madness. And to be honest, in most genres, the most simple melodies are normally the most popular ones, and especially with a very heavy on production sort of genre like Psytrance, it's not always necessary to have really complex melodies. And I'm saying that in the sense of like you know there's not many complex chords. Doesn't have to have many variations throughout the song. It could be a loop from like 16, 32 bars, and just have enough automation in your filtering to keep this interesting for the listener. Um, and to be honest, there are like genres like the darker ones and the faster ones where sometimes there's the melodies become more of a rhythmic thing rather than really a melodic thing. So they'll maybe go to only 3 to 5 different notes in the whole scale, the whole song, just because it's more like a tan tan ta ta ta, rather than really having super complicated melodies going on, because there's already so much other stuff going on that just doesn't fit. And then there are other genres where they have these big ARP and, well, there. Oh, almost fell. There are I'm not the greatest, to be totally honest with you, at melodies. I don't have any theoretical uh, education in this, like some actual education in this. I read a few books on it. There are skills, of course, and the skills. Let me see if I have any skills here. Nope, nope. That's also something else. Well, sorry. Um, I'll make another video about this. This is not very important right now. Start. All right. So leads. Um, of course, the melodies are going to be important. But here, for example, I took 4 notes, and it's in this all in the very standard D minor scale, D sharp minor scale, and it just goes like this. So without any effects. Dun, 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 dun. Ah, it's not in the song yet because my idea was to either use this in the beginning or build up to this to have a bit of a switch from the other ones. But I wanted to show you this, just how easy it can be. It's always good to have a good beginning and end. So, as they say, this is your root key. So this is also the one. There's your kick and bass are all tuned to this key. So this will always sound great. And then it goes to the higher one. That's the dominant key. Normally it's located here. And then here's the subdominant one. And these two kind of work together. Like they kind of answer each other. So you get the and then this one is a bit of an off one. You could do it on D, and that normally it's great to go back on the last note to your original key. Doesn't need to be the same octave, could be higher, could be lower, you know. That would work as well. But I like that it's off and a bit funky. So in this case, it's just the arp, you know, it goes in a ladder shape, up and down and up and down. Um, I really um, didn't do much. I widened the signal and put it to left and right, as you can see here. Put some reverb on both. I think I literally just copied it. This filter doesn't even need to be there. I just copied the channel across and then I have one centered to widen it. It's a very simple sound, uh, but it already sounds a bit usable. Now, let's not spend too much effort into the impossible. Alright, so another one, the B zoom. I have a feeling this one will be quite light actually. Probably could fit in the ambience as well. Or the effects. As you hear, it's more an effecty one. So this is maybe it has the potential to become more present, and probably I'm with all these melodies I'm gonna focus one and the other throughout the song. So this one might get a little bit of a place more in the beginning of the song. Now the melody, there's no melody. It's just a rhythmic tone basically to, well, let's have a listen. So I'll turn the most dominant ones off. That's that one and that one. As you can hear, it provides a bit of the rhythmic ones. How I make these rhythms, sometimes I start with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, like to like the kick, and then start placing them left and right. Or sometimes I sit on this little keyboard and then with my very, very poor skills of keyboard playing, I'll just and then quantize it, see if I can get something fun out of that. Or sometimes I'm sitting in my head like and then try to write this out until it sounds the same as it did in my head. That's normal my ways of working in making a rhythm or melody. I have no real intuition, you know. Some people have a feeling for different skills, and this is really just practice, but also just I guess, you know, the way your brain works, and then you could put it into all kinds of feelings. You could go from like what people or Hollywood sees as a Chinese feeling, and then you could go into more like a medieval sounding thing. You know, it could be really cool. But in general, if you do what I'm doing, you're probably doing like a majority of Psytrance artists, just messing around with relatively simple melodies. So here we have the B zoom. It's a silent sound, just the initialized preset. I think very standard. It's just a saw wave with just sustain, so that it stays the same volume throughout everything. Low pass on it. It's really nothing special. Ping pong. Just the kick so it doesn't clash. Rolled off. You see, it doesn't have to be too complicated. It's a bit of a filler sound. But I found it worked nice with it, especially with that pong. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same one. Almost. The Tubby Cat, also from Howard Scar. Again, I was probably feeling lazy. Just, I think it was a sequence one. I turned that sequencer off. Didn't do much In terms of effects, this was all already there. Um, Basically cheated my way into this rhythm. Um, Maybe the bandpass was on there already. I might have put that on there to make it a bit more psytrancey. And then have an LFO on it. I think that's almost everything I did. I had here linked the LFO to the LFO rate, turn the LFO up so that you get, like, for example, this is now at 50, so let's put in 0. So it's the same sound, and then instead of that, because of that LFO being synced by this one, 1 and 2, and that one being controlled by the other LFO, you have a constant movement in it, so then it sounds like. You see? And, I didn't really do much of that. Howard Scar did. But I put an LFO on there, so hey. But I liked it, and it fitted with the rest, and it's not really any of the most present ones, so I couldn't really be bothered. Well, again, some distortion, and another distortion. It's always good to use distortions on leads, because it just fuzzing up creates more harmonies, and also, kind of unharmonic sounds, but it just makes it sound more present, wider, warmer, whatever you want to call it. It just creates a bigger sound to it. And one thing I would normally do is, do take away these effects and either completely redo it. As you can see, there's distortion here on it already. But I knew a few of these weren't so processed and so overdone in the preset itself that it's still workable. But yeah, let's be honest, I cheated there. And the EQ, again, just lowered this because I didn't want it to clash with the kick and bass. A little of panning. The Valhalla Vintage reverb, my go-to one. I had it set so that the initial sound, it, let me see, so that the beginning is dry, the very first 70 milliseconds around and about, it's just purely without reverb, so that your ear can pierce it, or your ear can find it, so it pierces. Oh, there's no key in that. I think I didn't even want to use that one. And smooth random on this one here. You have different settings. I normally use this one for my go-to one. This is more for like strings and stuff. And then the smooth random, it makes it not too present. And I don't know. Try them out. It's hard to say. But in general, it's also good for things that it doesn't have to be so overly done, like the Sanctuary one, like with strings and stuff. But you still want it to be a bit present, but not as in the back as with the standard one that it comes with. More EQ, just by ear, like again, low and high. This is all mentioned before. Compensated again there, for what I reduced the ping pong so that it kind of nicely fades throughout. You could even have a bit more. And then, besides it being a bit of a, effect, I guess you could throw it in effects. It also gives a bit of the ambience. This one basically falls between all or through all of them. Sometimes I don't really know where to put him, to be honest. So this one is a bit of a vague one. And then I think I compressed it a bit, yeah, because I want it to be much louder. Without it, kind of fell away. slow attack. So again, the loudest part pierces through, and then made sure that the here I'll show. It's much easier to see this. Start exoscope. This is with the compressor. And it just tied the sound a bit more together. Apparently, it's very minimal, but basically it pushed that volume up a bit more. Yeah, the rest is not so interesting. Let's get to the more interesting part. This was first the main melody that I had in mind. Again, I just start here with a 4x4 loop, and have it like every 1, 2, 3, 4. I started off with that, and then basically tried to mess around with that, and then I figured that one was here. I put it back, and I made a longer one. But as you can see, it all stays within like 10, within 1 octave. It's really nothing too fancy. I always notice and go through and use the one above the root one, always works, and then skip one on the bottom and then go to the second bit below it. Those 3, you're always safe. And then above this, you could go for this one or this one. But if you look into like the Egyptian or Gypsy scale, they always have these that they skip one of these notes, and I just noticed by on the top of my head, because I use it more often, this one will work and gives it a bit more exotic, or whatever you want to call it, feeling to it. So that's why I placed this one here, and yeah, it creates a bit more mysterious sound to it. So let's listen to it with no plugins. Pretty dry. I think I did start from initialize here. No, actually I copied. I think this might even be a copy of the cat, and then used it again. And rather than having 11 oscillators or voices, I just have a dual one, so it's a bit more in the center. And then with the same changes, I only added the third oscillator and the FM oscillator or filter to it. I added some LFO here and there to the oscillators itself. The first one I think I kept steady, because I want this to be the main sound, and alone it sounds much different than with frequency modulation and the filter. But yeah, square-ish sound, and then have the second one, basically changing over time the phase. This is the pulse width modulation, so the amount between every wave, every revolution, so it goes up and down, or in the case of a square, it goes up, straight down. That size between those, that varies, so it creates a bit of movement. The third oscillator, I did something similar. Instead of the width, basically the wave, I think it slides somewhere between a sine and a saw, and then I made it re-trigger so that the notes do start at the same, so it's a bit more consistent. And I think I did that because it's more of the transient, and this one's maybe a bit more in the background. Yeah, you hear that, like this is the one that catches your ear. So these are all just channels for the one that aren't familiar with Zebra. And together, and then in the back, the and together they create a bit more fuller sound to it. It's in poly mode, so rather than the cat, this one you can make chords with and double notes, but no gliding. Even though it might be no, I don't think so. No. So there's that, and then probably I would also set some, if I can find it. Here we go. Key to gain, so that how higher the gain, how higher in the octave it goes, how loud the volume is, and you could also do this with the filter. I have to go back and look that up myself in the handbook, but basically key tracking, as they call it. And this is very fun because then you can adjust by the velocity, so the volume of the notes, these ones that are all very untouched. Basically a bit of how much it opens up. So let's say here we want to increase it to be when these are lower, the volume is lower. It doesn't do this automatically. So now of oscillator 1 and say 3, we want to adjust this a bit so that we can have some variations here, so it doesn't all sound the same. So let's spice this up a bit. So this one is a dominant one because it grabs your attention. I want those louds. These it could be a bit softer, you know. This one also maybe even louder. And then this one, because it's right before the melody starts again, I'm gonna create it a bit lower so that it basically goes, the melody goes, becomes loud, then goes down in volume, then goes up again, and then here kind of goes up as a little bit of a change. And now I hear this one, I want that to be a bit louder, and actually this one to be a bit softer. So I was right, it goes up, down, up, down. So already a bit more movement. Now, the plugins I put on there, you can probably see I'm quite using the same ones. I probably copy and pasted a few of these across with good reason, so that it sounds quite together. When I get a bit more of a arrangement and the song is more coming together, I'll get a better idea where I'm going to. So when that's happening, I might sweeten this up with some other effects and plugins. But in my experience, if I overdo this, I might get really interesting sounds. But it's so much work and it gets so complicated to add other things or do things with it that I always tend to keep this a bit more simple until I'm a bit further in the song, and then basically you allow yourself more freedom when you keep this a bit on the low side of processing and stuff. So just make a sound that you like in the plugin or the synth itself. So I like that sound. I'm probably not going to do much to that anymore. And this is all your bread and butter and rolled off this little bit of reduction, so it appears in the high frequencies, little ping pong. Probably would give it a little bit of Valhalla here, so it has some reverb and isn't super dry. Now you could be actually, you know, a bit smarter with that. And then we already set that one. I think that one is fine. It's pretty standard. Maybe high shelf a bit more, so that has a bit more of a high frequency to it. And then low cut. And then we say, okay, I'm gonna probably use this for many more tracks. Chug it on a return, put it all the way up, name it reverb, and then this will sound the same for everything you send to it, which is in this case great, because then again, as I said, then I use all the same plugins and most to kind of put it in the same sonic space, in the same room. Again, we're doing that, so I'm giving this one maybe a bit, and then the other main one also a bit. And then the original style stays the same sound. It's just that this extra channel just gets reverb, and that just creates an atmosphere that makes everything work together. And you can hear the second lead also in there. That one. So here you just hear them together. So that's nice. You can create the ambience that I did here with some sense, and that further increases basically the glue, the everything tying it together. Just helps with that. And then I put quite a heavy compressor on it, because I want this to be loud, because it's the main thing that catches your ear when this one comes in. So I have it quite loud or quite heavy working on it. You have a few presets that I normally start with. I use the drum bus because it really squashes the sound, and then dialed it back quite a lot in sensitivity and ratio. That's a great start. Alright, so that's that one. And then this one is the same melody, but just very high. So just transient, just again, very simple things. Just cut all the low frequencies. I'm not even gonna bother explaining it, because it's all the same. And then just a saw wave where I have a very slow attack, so it misses that transient. And then I did this funky trick of delaying the track, but making it start earlier. So this track starts 7 milliseconds before the rest. So it basically starts going up, it goes up before this sounds plays. So the other one already goes a bit up, and then the main melody plays, and then it hits kind of at the same time. So here, I'll give you an idea. Without this also works, but if it's at the same, it feels a bit too late, so that's why I corrected it. And then you kind of already have like an introduction even before the melody starts playing. So that's a funny little trick. The main melody, I again copied the letter, which was the cat, and actually I copied this one and made the cat out of that one, and did the same here, put it an octave higher. I was first working actually making this melody in this one above it, but then I wanted to use different filtering and different everything for it. So I just copied it across. It almost has the same processing, with the exception being that it has a micro shift, which is a phasing, flanging style kind of plugin. I explained it before. This widens the sound a bit. Then the micro micro warmer basically is the same as the PSP warmer. Added a little bit high. I used it on the bass as well. This just creates a lot of richness in the sound. And on a Rough Rider, it's the same. Just compression to make it loud. And then together with that, it sounds. And this melody, it's nothing too fancy either. It's just, the root key went down one, went down another one. And normally I will start with, these, like, I already did a little trick that the last one, I make it go to what the next bar is going to be. Same here. But normally I would start like this and then just go up, or down, and just mess around. It's nothing really too complicated. And then together with this, if it harmonizes nice, you'll quickly get something that, sounds kind of nice. But really, I could explain for days, but honestly, just go and try. You'll find something that you like. It's really not, it doesn't have to be too complicated. And normally, if you keep it simple, you give yourself a lot of other space. But honestly, I'm not your guy for great melodies, to be honest. There are a lot of better musicians that do this so much better. So I'll keep that short. And then cinematic. It's not really cinematic. It's, I think, more percussive. It pans a bit left and right, and it's this high pitched. Why I exactly did this, I probably just, it was called cinematic, and I just wanted some more feeling. And these two are the whole melody. The rest is just around that to kind of sweeten it up. And we're forgetting about this one. This one is for later. And then probably I'll make a few other main melodies. Whatever I find a bit appealing at that time. But yeah, altogether. I think the rhythm here is even the most important. That it skips here one, and then probably I could do that same little thingy here again. Tried to just mess around a bit. I'll make another video where I'll make all this from scratch, so you can see the process, how I do it. But I don't really do anything too fancy, to be honest. And as I say, the simplest are normally the better ones. Like, really go all out with this one alone. It's all the way how you process it, in filtering, but also in reverb and all that stuff. I think that's maybe even more important than the actual sound. I mean, don't get me wrong. The better the sound you start with, the easier your life becomes, and the better the music, the more it drags it forward. But yeah, that's about it for this video. I'll show you right now quickly again with everything together, and then you get an idea what the leads are doing to it all. So this still needs a lot of variation and changing. For like a short loop, it maybe sounds alright. So this will be something you work through, and then you leave it for maybe 10-20 seconds like this, going looping, because it already has some movement. But then of course you're gonna filter it up and down. But we're gonna explain that in two videos. First, it's not gonna be a long video about acoustics and effects. I'm gonna actually try to make it while doing it, so I'll be talking less in that video. But yeah, we'll see you then, and I hope to see you there. Alright, have a great evening.